Now here's the big mover in the early laps. This is Graham Rahal. Rahal, who started all the way back in 30th position. He's picked up 7 spots now, and he's running in 23rd. Watch him at the start of the race here.
Getting a draft with 2 cars in front, wisely chooses the high line. Now he's a spotter. You can hear that spotter on his radio, standing right up there on the right-hand side in turn 3, high above, can see exactly what's going on. Radios to the drivers to tell them whether they are clear and lets them know where the safe portion is on the racetrack. Rick?
Well, inside the cars, they have what they call tools, the ability to change some of the suspension settings. Not a lot, but they can do them. The team just came on Danica Patrick's radio and asked, are the tools working? And she said, not really. As a result, they said, well, we'll also try a tire pressure adjustment when they come in. I remember talking with Tony Kanaan before the race about the fact that they need those tools. And he said, there aren't going to be enough ways to make those changes in this car at this race.
All right, Rick, thanks. So, as Graham Rahal continues to try and dig forward, we look at the front of the field to see whether some of these cars will commit to that stop shorter for fresher tires strategy that Jan described a minute ago. Just for perspective on pace, by the way, with the heat and race conditions and so on, Ed Carpenter, the leader of the race, is running a full 1 second slower than the bulk of the pack did on Carb Day on Friday.
I think that's because of the heat, but what's very impressive with Ed Carpenter, his times are extremely consistent. When your tires fall off, you start to see a variation in your speed. Some laps will be quicker, but they tend to always keep dropping off. He is in complete control of this race right now.
So who commits to the earlier stops? Who stays out until the full load of fuel is burned up? We'll find out in these next 10 minutes or so at the Indianapolis 500. The Indianapolis 500, telecast presented by Firestone. We've already burned through 50 miles, a little better than that. Clear so far, no caution flags, and Ed Carpenter leading all of the laps from his pole position after he got the jump on the initial start. Will Power is running in 3rd position. A look from his onboard camera and a reminder to download IndyCar Mobile to access exclusive live in-car cameras, hear driver and pit crew chatter and more, only on Verizon. We've got a little radio for you here.
Fuel 95 or 118 for 5 stops, all green. Not telling you to go for those, just keep in touch with these guys. Just information there.
That might as well have been Chinese for us, because I have no idea what those numbers meant, but it definitely was a fuel discussion and strategy. So he has a number that he has to reach.
Well, they will never let, even when you ask the teams, what they explain on the radio to the drivers is a code. And so that driver will go along and turn around and make the selection on the knob of the steering wheel to exactly where the teams tell them, saving a little bit of fuel. Now, we have to remember that all these cars have real-time telemetry, so everything that's going on in these cars, almost 100 map channels, gets beamed back to the pit lane to all the engineers sitting on pit lane so they can see in their computers exactly what's going on with the car. One of them, obviously, is fuel mileage, along with tire pressure, and amongst other things, they'll come up with a strategy for the race itself for the driver.
Get back in the field a little bit. 19 is Zachary Clayman DeMello, one of the rookie drivers in the field, followed by 6 Robert Wickens. There's Clayman DeMello out of Montreal. Was not supposed to be in this race. That was supposed to be Pietro Fittipaldi, the grandson of the 2-time winner. But Fittipaldi injured in a sports car racing crash over at Spa-Francorchamps. I talked to him in the Gasoline Alley area yesterday. He had surgery. He's here. He's moving around. His rehab's going well. He expects to be back in the IndyCar Series by the Mid-Ohio race this summer, which would be a terrific recovery from what was an awful crash. There's Wickens, there's Munoz, Carlos Munoz.
The biggest difference I have noticed from the last 4 years is the cars cannot get as close in the corners as they had done in the past. And because of that, it's very difficult to draft past anybody because you're not accelerating off the corner faster than the car that's in front of you. So this is going to play a lot into how this race ends.
And I think you're exactly right. And I think the other thing that we're seeing right now, I mentioned that it rained in the overnight, took some of the rubber off the racetrack. Cars are going to be a little different than what they finished up with on the final practice on Friday. They'll be tuning on those cars. We talked about, as Rick mentioned, some of the tools inside there. They can change the weight distribution of the car by pushing a button on the steering wheel and also move the roll bars in the car front and rear. Now, you and I have roll bars on a road car. They're non-adjustable. Drivers tune their cars to the conditions. After every stop, I think we're going to see the pace start to pick up.
And let's talk about the engine battle. Of the top 8 cars, 7 of them are Chevys and only one with Bourdais in 5th place is a Honda.
Graham Rahal picking up another spot.
And I'm not so sure James Davison did not have a problem up there in turn 3 or 4. He looked very slow off the pace, maybe got some dirty air from the car in front and ended up going up the road. These cars, they have that understeer. You can see he's
this
got
is
the
this
major
is not
problem
where you
right
want.
now.
This is not where you want to get off the throttle. You're right. He absolutely had something. What was all that about?
What's up with Davison's car?
The situation is he was on the radio early on saying that the car was loose. They said, hang in there, hang in there. We're seeing an example of what happens if you hang in there too long. If you have one end that's not working, it goes away in a hurry. James Davison, a classic example.
That's J.R. Hildebrand in the blue, orange, and white car that just picked up a spot on Charlie Kimball in that corner. Davison, of course, has crashed once already in the week this week. A heavy crash left him battered pretty good as he's going to lose a spot here to Oriol Servia.
He's created an enormous bottleneck behind him.
And Eddie, you know what ends up happening when a car goes back in front of you. Your car gets to be more nervous, more undrivable. So every time a car passes him, he has more risk to actually lose control of the car. But you're right, the bottleneck behind him has created just a traffic jam.
And the leader is catching the tail end of the field. And that's Ed Carpenter at the back of that pack, right behind the double wide.
And watch for Ed to pit. He won't want to be wasting time here. He'll slip into the pits, I'm sure.
Danica Patrick, the first one to pit. Rick?
Yeah, early on, Jan was talking about the question, do you go for fuel or do you go for tires? Well, in this case, it's tires and the concern about the balance of the car. They were concerned about that. As a result, they said they're going to take half a turn of wing out and send her back out. There you see they make that adjustment and send her back out into this race.
Boy, Davidson sure has changed the complexion of this race early on. Right now, Carpenter has to find a way to carve his way through all those cars. If not, he'll get passed by Pagenaud.
Here's Tony Kanaan in.
Yeah, Tony Kanaan, remember, he was fastest on carb day, the last practice before we got to the Indy 500. They're going to make a wing adjustment on his car as well. Hasn't been saying an awful lot about the car in terms of its condition, other than it's time to make a minor change. Nice clean stop.
And Rick mentioned that wing change. Tony Kanaan was probably complaining about understeer where the front doesn't react. The wing change will take care of that.
Here come the leaders to pit road. Simon Pagenaud and Carpenter both in. A few others following them in. Castroneves will also come in. Back of that line, that's Charlie Kimball in between Pagenaud and Castroneves. Rick?
Simon Pagenaud bringing the car down. He was very happy on Friday. In fact, he said he had about a car that was about a 95 out of 100 in terms of where it was going to go and what it was going to do. He has not been complaining much about the car overall, but still a minor wing change. Doc?
Front wing change for Ed Carpenter, a little bit to try to help the understeer in the corner. Carpenter away, he will go out in front of Pagenaud. Ed Carpenter has not complained one bit about the car, but they're trying to think ahead. That's why they made the front wing change, to be able to get a little more front steer in the car in traffic.
Joseph Newgarden took over the lead when Pagenaud and Carpenter pitted. Now Newgarden is on the pit lane along with a whole host of others. Power, Bourdais, Dixon, Marco Andretti, Ryan Hunter-Reay all in on this stop. There is Newgarden.
Defending series champion Joseph Newgarden had commented a little bit about making a wing change. Now they're saying a half a turn of front wing. They said air pressure. No, it'll be air pressure only on the side for Newgarden, trying to help the car turn a little bit with air pressure only.
Dixon is away. That's Bourdais fitting back into line ahead of Marco Andretti. Spencer Pigot has taken over the lead by not pitting yet. Can't cross that line between the turns 1 and 2 areas on the warm-up lane with all 4 tires. You can put the left side tires all the way over on that line, but you can't have all 4 across it. Blair Julian just changed the outside front tire on Scott Dixon's car. Here's what it looks like at Indianapolis. We'll come back after a word from your ABC station.